Markwayne, right now, is FEMA currently funded?
No, sir.
Is CISA currently funded dealing with cybersecurity?
No, sir.
How about TSA?
No, sir.
Secret Service?
No, sir.
Coast Guard?
No, sir.
Customs and Border Protection?
No, sir.
The Weapons of Mass Destruction Office?
No, sir.
Customs professionals?
No, sir.
This is something we got to get resolved. We can complain all we want to about where things are, but we have an argument and a disagreement on policy areas, and 250,000 federal employees and their families are the ones that are suffering because of our argument. There's a way to solve this. We've talked about it a lot. We should just stay here until we're done. Just keep arguing it out until we've actually solved the problem. But instead, we broke last weekend. Everybody flew home right past the TSA agents that are not getting paid while we flew home. Why didn't we stay? To be able to try to get things resolved. That's my encouragement, has been my encouragement all along. We shouldn't walk away from a disagreement when there are families all over the country that are the ones suffering for it. Unfortunately, the state of Oklahoma is pretty familiar with natural disasters, as you know well. You and I have been in multiple different natural disaster scenes. There's a lot of work that's happened at the border so far. The border has moved from 12,000 people a day illegally crossing the border and being released into the country, unvetted, unchecked, to now a handful of people even attempt to cross our southern border, and those that are arrested and detained, as is the law. FEMA is still an undone project. And I'm not blaming that on Kristi. There's a lot to get done on it, but you're going to walk in with a project going on with FEMA right now. Love to get your ideas and your thoughts. You're very familiar with this area and have great experience on it. What are your thoughts on how to be able to get FEMA into a better place so that people aren't waiting forever for a response?
FEMA was never designed to be the first responder. That's the states. FEMA was designed to be the assistance to the states when the disaster reaches certain levels, which we need to discuss those too, because I think some of the levels are unrealistic, especially Senator Hassan and I have talked about this, that sometimes in rural areas they're not able to meet those thresholds. But working with the state, allowing the state to have the emergency response, FEMA simply helping write checks and assuring that they have the capability and the manpower if need be. But for the FEMA to walk in like FBI walking on a crime scene and taking over, no one's going to care more about their backyard than the people that live there in that state. And I think there's a lot of good ideas. I've heard at meeting with so many of you all, there were so many great ideas on how to make FEMA work better. It's got a great mission. And I think people at FEMA want to do their job, but we can be more effective and be more direct and speed it up. Taking years to get reimbursed is not acceptable. Taking, honestly, months to get reimbursed is not acceptable. These small municipalities, they can't afford it. They don't have that tax base to do it. And they're already going through a struggling time, which means they're probably losing tax revenue, especially if it hits their town. So we've got a lot of work there. I do believe that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That means we're going to look at each one of the 22 agencies that fall underneath DHS and say, how can we deliver the mission better for the American people?
That's great. That'd be a huge help to everybody. Talking about the length of time it takes to get a response, you've been a part of, as I have, on the nonprofit security grants that are out there. We have some locations that are higher risk than others. Synagogues and temples have been one of those very high-risk locations that are out there. Last week in Michigan, we had another situation where an absolute terrorist drove a vehicle packed with explosives into a Jewish daycare, intending to kill as many Jewish children as he possibly could. I mean, that was his intent, was to be able to do that. That location happened to be one of the locations where there's also been this nonprofit security grant to help harden that facility. We have multiple challenges here. One of them is when the decision is made, they make a request, go through the paperwork, get approval to be one of those locations that we say, hey, we need to harden this location. Once the approval is done, it may take months to over a year just for the dollars to actually come on it because there's more bureaucratic hoops to go through. So as you're dealing with things like contracts that are out there and the way decisions are made, or FEMA, that's one of the areas I would encourage you to take a look at. I know you're very passionate about. How do you fix the issue where approval's been done, And everyone's saying, great, can we get to work? And the federal government says, no, you can't actually get to work. You got to wait some more before the actual work can actually begin to do that. How does that get fixed?
We got to streamline the process and cut out the redundancies. The amount of paperwork, the senator from Michigan and I had a long conversation about this, the amount of paperwork to just, once you're approved, to get the funding flowing, and then the paperwork that's followed up on it is way too encumbersome. And there's a better way to do this. Some of these policies I have to work with you guys on. Some of these grants were written with checks and balances, which we all got to be very cautious on how we spend the taxpayer dollars. Things that I can change, things that I can cut out on the redundancy part of it, I will work with. Things that, as the senator and I talked about, things that it may take you to make changes on, we'll bring it to your attention. I will work with you, and we'll see how we can make it better.
Be great. As you know, Oklahoma's been one of the leaders in counter-drone. This is a big issue
Yes.
for us as a country. Every high school football game, every college football game, every gathering of people for every festival and gathering across the country has now become a risk location for drones and drone mitigation. FBI can't be everywhere. We don't want them to be everywhere. We do have to figure out some process. So as you begin to think about this issue, it's a tough one to deal with, but it is a basic national security issue as well. It's going to land on your desk pretty quickly, especially with the Olympics coming, with FIFA coming, all those things that are happening. We got to be able to figure out how to do counter-drone and to be able to not just identify there it is, but to also mitigate the risk. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I'd love to speak about that. With funding, talking to some of our agency heads, with a lack of funding right now, we have people quitting because they got to go to work. Meeting these demands are even going to be tougher. So we just talk about FIFA, for instance, and then you talk about 2028, which is going to be the busiest year of DHS in history because we have the Olympics and we have the presidential election going on. It'll take 4 months once funding comes in to start replacing those that we've lost for training before we can get them out in the field. We don't have 4 months with FIFA. But that's and how do we expect these people to stay on the job and work? We're losing institutional knowledge. We're losing people we've already trained. And it's going to be difficult to deliver this mission. The way that I understand is we're behind in UAS. We're behind in FIFA right now on actually delivering the mission that we have to. We're also behind in reimbursing local communities that's also working with us. That's going to have to take a tremendous amount of focus and partnership. And like I said in my opening statement, failure is not an option, so we've got to deliver. But sometimes when you have to rush like this, especially trying to get people on the job because we just quit funding them for the third time in less than a year, and we expect these people to keep working, it puts the mission at risk, and we have a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up. Kristi, thank you. This is a strain on the family and everything else right now. So thanks, y'all, for stepping into this role. Look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.